Good afternoon. I hope everyone's well. Welcome to the stream. So I thought I'd start doing, now I finished the full alt watch list, I thought I'd start doing some updates on the alt alerts as they come in each day, so you've got some perhaps more relevant and current trades. Excuse me. On Bitcoin and Ether, like I still haven't done a great deal, but I think I'll run through that quickly first. I did put some new shorts in on Bitcoin, Ether, and the majors, or short possibilities. But like I'm a bit skeptical, and frankly, it's so messy and just following the indices. So I'm still very much in two minds about what it's going to do. I do my usual, have a quick look at the indices first. So we have a bit of a disconnection today, so I actually thought I'd overlay it because someone in my group said they didn't really see it matching at all, but I don't know what time frame they were referring to. So the purple line here or the red line is Bitcoin, and then S&P behind it. So clearly it is following quite a lot, at least more recently, and then the higher time frame less, and certainly less the further you go back. What I meant normally when I say it follows it is normally it's just New York. So Asia and London on the lower time frames, Asia and London are less likely to follow, but New York's much more likely that the wicks and the manipulation is much more matching. However, today it's been less so. So you can see S&P was dropping up until, when was that, like an hour or so ago, start of New York, and Bitcoin was still going up, and now S&P is moving back up again, and Bitcoin is now obviously doing the same thing, or it was going up anyway. So there's a bit of a disconnect today, but more recently we've had a very comparable price action in the New York session. From a chart perspective, so obviously we had the long I talked about on Monday, and then this in the case of S&P and Nasdaq, and I think a few of the other indices all had this immediate weekly supply. So I had the alert on this slightly higher at the 3-day inside, and this is much more like the Ether structure. This is not a strong supply because we've only got a swing fail of the low. However, it has had a couple of rejections off it already. However, it is still supply. We are still in a downtrend, so this could still drop down and give another low. I've got another alert there apparently. I'm not sure why it's there. It feels like that's too high. 1 month I might have moved that by mistake. So my next decent zone for a bounce on S&P anyway is still quite a long way off. But whether we're finally going to get some sort of at least a decent bounce retracement, even if it only comes up to here, it would be nice. It's now made monthly supply above there as well, so I can't say I'm bullish on this particularly anymore, and not at least until we hit the monthly demand. But we might get a move through here this week. We need to see, and we have the tariffs announcement apparently is now this evening, which I think is 4 PM EST, which is 9 PM Portugal time, GMT. So I'm not sure if that's going to have an impact. But yeah, so I'm at the moment, I've just got, like I say, that aggressive alert on S&P and a similar one, but it's now slightly higher. So S&P's moved up, the zone was closer, so it's moved up a bit quicker. Nasdaq has been slightly weaker, also came off a demand at the lows, but I had the alert on the weekly is higher in the case of Nasdaq. Russell's also higher. And I think the Dow is the only one that didn't create a weekly supply. I did put an alert that does have a monthly though at the top of last week's price action, so I have put an alert in just to see if there's a reaction off the monthly. So I'd like to see some confluence on those. So it's possible S&P is a bit too close, but we shall see. Other than that, the other indices are looking a little bit weaker. Australia's okay actually, but Euro and Pound are looking a little bit weaker, and as is Japan 225. But I guess we'll see if those pick up. They don't always have to follow each other, but there's generally decent to have decent confluence. The dollar I think has dropped off a bit today, but again, I wanted it to test this 2-day level or 2-day zone down below, what's that, 103.7 in that area, and then get a test of the euro up in the supply above. So yeah, we've had some decent FX alerts this week as well. Gold's still consolidating through here, but it's still holding 8-hour demand, so I mean, I'm not bearish on this as yet. I did say earlier it'll be interesting, like if it creates, it might create 12-hour railroad track, so then if it does close below this 12-hour, that will give a decent short, but you've got to see the close below first, because at the moment it's still holding this 8-hour demand and still retaining the uptrend. And it's had a couple of tests on this 4-hour supply now as well. But again, we might get some decent moves on that with FOMC and with tariff news, so we shall see. So that doesn't really add much to the Bitcoin situation. So CME did just create an 8-hour demand just at current price, and only like an hour ago, I think, or maybe 2 hours ago, I can't see now. I did throw in the possibility of a short entry in this daily supply. It's not high probability, but again, so we've got the bigger picture. We've got this 5-day supply that was rejected where I had the entry last week, but obviously ideally you want that to take out demand in order for the new supply that's created to be strong. So it hasn't taken out demand, and it's in fact made a higher low, so this isn't a strong supply. It may, however, give a scalp, and at the moment we're just rejecting off that 5-day level again, 86k. There were a bunch of liquidations at the 86k level. So this is the CoinGlass website if you want to go and look at it yourself. It's free data. So there were a bunch of liquidations there, so it's not overly surprising. It's gone up into there, and it took a bunch earlier today. And the data's actually been really weird, and it's another reason that I've been kind of reticent and not really wanting to trade it is, so yesterday when we had the drop in New York and then the pump, we had a very strong up move on spot. On derivatives, it looks like, you know, we had a strong increase, supporting increase in OI then, but in fact what happened, and I don't want to show the data now because my computer will probably freeze up, but what in fact actually happened is everybody longed up at the top here. There was some short squeezing going on, but not a great deal, but it was actually just a bunch of people longing at the top, and it's been the same today. Like now finally I think we've got some change over the last hour. But even this morning when price was going up, like we had OI dropping, but the future CVD was going up. And when I looked at the deeper data on that, we had, again, like not much going on in the lower section, but a bunch of people longing at the top and then a bunch of shorts at the top as well. So I guess those shorts are being squeezed now. And then obviously, and I think that I did have a quick look actually, I think there are some longs going in again. I say the top because obviously I don't know that this is the top. But it's not ideal really when you're at resistance and you see people going into longs. Sure, it can still go higher, and my alert for possible shorts is higher, and it can still squeeze higher, but like when you're looking in a resistance or a supply zone for short entries, what you want to see is people longing up there, because then the chances are they're going to get trapped. But that's just another level of confluence. We have had some bit of spot buying going on in this most recent move, but again, so yesterday we had a whole bunch of buying going in on Coinbase, but there was no ETF data supporting that. So at the time, and then later I kind of looked at it, so once the data was confirmed at the end of the day, you can see there was a negative yesterday, so the ETFs were still predominantly selling yesterday, not a huge sale, but still on the sell side for the last few days. I think it's, and so as I looked earlier today, so the current data, we've had like a small buy from Bitwise, or 24 million, small, and again the big Grayscale 600 BTC sell, which is, you know, common. You know, for some reason every time Grayscale gets sell, it always seems to be like 650 odd BTC. So yeah, we've got some set, like just not much happening today on the ETFs. So, and I think that's so much why we're just following what traditional finance is doing and what the indices are doing, because there's just no real buying going on from any big players at the moment, or selling for that matter. On the walls were interesting as well. So I keep saying I would like the 80k wall to get hit, which obviously it didn't quite come down to at the lows. I've made these, this is the 4-hour chart on the left and Binance, and the 1-hour chart for Coinbase on the right. So you can see on Coinbase, it's got heaps and heaps of walls stacked below, but so 80k being the, well, there's some smaller ones just above 80k, was probably about 78 there. No, sorry, 81. counting upwards, not downwards. So 81k has got some smaller walls, and then big walls at 80k, 75k, 70k. I think there's other big ones, but just stacked throughout that area. And typically, if you have walls, the price will eventually go there to hit them. Yeah, and above it's got nothing. So that's kind of interesting. Binance has a little bit more above and it's a bit more balanced on both sides. And yeah, I think the big wall on Binance is at 90k, or is that just above 90k? So again, you know, we could well head in that direction because that's where the walls are, and those that attract the price if people want to fill their orders. Go back to the chart. So obviously if we go to 90k and if we do go up to those walls, then we're going to take out the previous high. And you know, this is still an uptrend, so that's entirely possible. What I really wanted for this to hit would be for US dollar dominance to hit support at the same time. And the equivalent support for US dollar dominance, nudge the chart, is here. Actually, I need to put my mouse cursor on. Always forget to do that. No, it didn't work. Can't remember the code. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so obviously US dollar dominance is here now, and I wanted it to hit this daily zone here really at the same time that Bitcoin hits supply, and that's obviously not going to happen now. So the confluence isn't quite what I wanted anymore on this. Similarly, we've got this new 8-hour demand on CME, so I don't know if that's going to propel this a little bit higher. But yeah, anyway, that's a zone you can watch out for a short on, but like I say, noting it's not the highest probability. On Ether, so Ether had the weekly supply that I've talked about in my last stream. So it's got this weekly supply here, and it's got a 3-day higher inside it. So again, I've set a possible short alert. Let me get across to put it. So I've set a possible short alert for this zone. As of yesterday, it looked like it was going to hit. Change that to black. It looked like this would hit at the same time as Bitcoin because they were both at the highs at the same time. But as of today, Ether has weakened off fairly significantly against Bitcoin, so it's now significantly lower. My other concern, and I'll show you on the lower time frame chart from Ether on this entry. Again, same as Bitcoin, you know, it's not a strong supply because it hasn't broken the low, and we're still on a higher low just at the base here. Let me try and drag this chart. So my concern was these stops up here. So it left a lot of stops above that trend line and left a lot of trend line stops here. So I think I put a comment on the alert just to be conscious. Yeah, I just put, yeah, no, I don't want it to go too much higher inside as there are trend line stops likely to squeeze. And I also wanted to see ETHBTC at weekly supply at the same time. I mean, at this rate, it doesn't even look like it's ever going to get up there. So, or at least not on this run. Because Bitcoin's strong, but this is weakened off. So let me just look at the ETHBTC chart. So what I really wanted, yeah, was for ETHBTC, and this was notes as of yesterday. So I might have to revise this. I was hoping that ETHBTC would come up to hit the weekly supply at the same time as this hit the 3-day above. But like I said, it's not looking like it's happening right now. New alert come in there. Yeah, so I don't think there's much more to say on that. The only other thing I think that's worth covering is I did do a run through of the crypto related equities, which I hadn't looked at for a while, and of Grayscale, just to kind of see what the complements is across the market. Because as you know, like, so certainly from a high time frame, like from a low time frame perspective, we can look at complements of US dollar dominance and Bitcoin. And the total charts and the others, other market cap charts and all that. But from a higher time frame perspective, we also normally, like, it's good to see decent confluence of where the crypto equities are, and if Grayscale, etc., and if everything's broadly at support, if everything's broadly at resistance. So what my concern is, so this is the coin chart, the Coinbase equity, is that this has made, and a few of these are like this, they've made a 3-month supply. And it's awkward because it's on a monthly demand, it's hit multiple times, but it's still holding monthly demand, and the 3-month supply is so close to price. So, you know, and in the case of some alts, we'll see like some of these will just reject here and drop straight off. But obviously the difficulty is, you know, this could still go all the way back up to the top of it if it wants to. So in the case of coin, it's got the 3 months right there and then this weekly right above. So yes, it can travel up here if it wants to. We are still on support, we are still on a higher low, so it's weak 3-month supply. But still with a 3-month level like that, like I wouldn't be confident longing this straight into supply. So yeah, these things make me slightly nervous for what Bitcoin might do, because if they are following a similar pattern, you know, Bitcoin may not have this 3-month supply here, but it's got lower time frame supply, but maybe this is an indication that we are going to get a bigger drop more imminently. Alternatively, you know, Bitcoin's going to move up and then this will take this back up into here. BITO, I think, is less bad. Yeah, so this has a monthly supply up here, but it didn't make anything new, and it's just kind of in a triangle pattern, holding 3-month demand at the low. So this one isn't as bad, and this potentially could give confluence for a move up. I think then RIOT and MARA are similar to the coin chart, so we are a bit mixed here. Put the monthly on again. Computer's obviously running at 100% CPU yet again. So again here you can see we've got the 3-month level that we've gone up through, and we're just testing this weekly supply inside it. And again, weak 3-month supply, still on 3-month demand, but in a very tight spot of like, what's it going to do? And given it's a monthly chart, you know, it's hard to judge, because I guess if it flips this weekly, then at least you could trade it up to here and see what happens. But like I say, again, this doesn't make me want to long right now. MARA, I believe, is the same. Yeah, this also has a 3-month supply, but it's a little bit higher, so you can see there's a bit of space there. It's tapped onto a 3-month demand at the low here. So again, this potentially could give room for a little bit of an up move, if not more. HUT is another one. Yeah, this had actually gone up a little bit today, but it has a 3-month again right next to price, but is holding monthly demand. It's actually a first like rounded retest of monthly demand, so but again in weekly supply. So it's just hard to know if this does manage to move inside, get a weekly close above there, then again we could look for a move higher in the zone. But again, like with a 3-month demand there, you know, there are other times, for example, let's say here, where the price comes and just taps the 3-month and then moves. So it is possible we just get a tap in here before a drop. And then overarchingly, you know, this does, like a lot of alts, this looks like a lot of alts to me, that this is quite a, we had an impulse, we've got a corrective pattern here. Oh, it's not drawing on my lines properly, but it should be a line like that. It's got a corrective pattern here, and that this could now fall. And that's, you know, that was my concern on alts, and it was my concern on, you know, when I said a lot of alerts, and when I was doing the watch list, I was talking a lot about this area here and how this is, you know, monthly demand on so many things, but in many cases it's not a strong demand. In this case, it's a little bit stronger because it has actually broken, this high has broken the previous highs. My computer's just too laggy. Yeah, so in the case of alts, like in most cases, they've just come straight through here. So I guess we'll see. MicroStrategy was looking a little bit better, but again, is just a difficult spot because it's in monthly, it's made a monthly supply as well. It has held weekly demand, so it's still holding the weekly up structure. But again, it's got a month of sellers in here, or sorry, it's had a month of buyers in here that are now going to be desperate to get out to break even. So is it going to be able to easily get through here? I'm not sure. You know, it's come up once and rejected, and now it's coming again for a second test. So we'll see. But it's obviously looking stronger than a lot of the others are. So yeah, that was of note. On Grayscale charts, I've commented before that Grayscale had already hit 3-month demand here, and it's one of the few that has. So again, is that enough? You know, is the Grayscale chart alone enough to push things up? In contrast, I think I also commented in my last stream, let me check, the forex.com chart has a big space to 3 month demand, and that's at 69k, which is a little bit lower. So again, the confluence is well off for a bounce on this. Not sure how reliable it is. I haven't used the forex.com chart before. You know, and here obviously it didn't come back. You know, in many cases it hasn't come back to demand, so it's entirely possible it does bounce here, similar to back here. You know, it didn't come down, and it barely even just tapped off the top of these wicks. So yeah, it certainly doesn't have to come down, but just these things just make me not fully confident with the confluence factor. Ether, the Grayscale Ether, is still like, okay, it could again swing foul the bottom of this zone, but it's the second time it's come down now. It's got a weekly supply. I think I put this in facetiously a while ago, in that, you know, this could very easily just drop down into this 3 month demand and fulfill this bigger triangle. The two that were interesting here particularly, actually there's more than two, but this, what I've commented before, so BCH, like I wanted, like for ages I was saying I didn't want BCH, I didn't think BCH was going to get a decent up move because we didn't have the confluence with Grayscale. So of note now, we have hit the 3 month demand on BCH. However, the real problem now I have is that the BCH chart itself made 3 month supply. And I'll get onto that, but again, just interested, like I like to observe these things as well. They don't necessarily help with immediate trading, but it's interesting to observe, you know, how things might play out, and, you know, is this going to win in inverted commas, or will they do completely different things? Because I think they have in the past, or at least they have on Bitcoin, I believe, like certainly, but maybe when it was less popular, you would have a lot less confluence on the Grayscale charts than you do on the with the traditional exchanges. Similar here with Litecoin, it's also, I wanted it to hit 3 month demand, so we've got that hit now and tap off it. So I'm interested to see if we can, you know, we do start getting some strength into Litecoin and BCH. Again, in contrast, we have GDLC, which is the digital large caps. This used to be a bit more spread across the large caps, but I think now is predominantly Bitcoin. So less helpful than it was previously, although interestingly, you know, it hasn't broken the previous all-time high. But is yeah, I need to check the percentages, but I think last I looked it was predominantly Bitcoin, so maybe not so helpful. But again, still a significant gap before it hits demand. ETC was one of the ones, again, it's made, okay, so you can see this is exactly what I was talking about. So this has made a 3 month supply. I'll show you the 3 month chart immediately at price, or just so you know, sorry, a very tight 3 month supply with a close just below there, and you can see that this month's, well, this quarter's candle has literally just tapped off into it and is now dropping straight off it. Doesn't mean it's going to drop to zero, but I have seen significant drops off these situations, so it's not something I ever want to trade against. I think this has an annual level there. But yeah, it's in fact in a bigger annual supply as well, like it's in a very significantly large annual supply up here. But it can use those levels of support sometimes anyway. But yeah, you can see that's coming straight off there, so yeah, I would look for lower on this. So ETC is not something I particularly want to look for longs on. XLM is another bit of a messy chart. So XLM is the sort of closest Grayscale gets to Ripple. I think they used to have a Ripple, but then it got cancelled, maybe with the SEC stuff, but I'm not sure what happened with that. This is still in a 3 month supply, but then made a 2 month demand. So again, it's just a bit of a messy chart, and I don't like it. It didn't really make anything new. It has a monthly supply up here. So I would like to look for longs on this if I was trading it down here, but just see what happens through here. But that's not a very exciting chart. I said in my last stream as well, another alert coming in, that Zcash and ZCSH were of interest, and it's interesting to see that Grayscale also supports that. So Zcash has come down a while ago, or last month, into the 3 month demand here. So that's of interest. It did make a 3 month supply, but it's got some space to it. But at least that does support potentially looking for longs on Zcash. It's still in weekly supply here, but again, it's a couple of hits on it, so it's possible it gets a move through this. And again, this is not a chart I would particularly like to trade, but the traditional exchange chart looks a little bit better. but at least it supports the possibility of a reversal here. It's still pretty early days. And ZCSH the same. So ZCSH again has just fallen back into this monthly level. It's got a 2-month supply up here, and then a 3-month inside it a lot higher. But again, at least this supports potentially looking for longs on the traditional exchanges. The only other couple I looked at were GLINK and SOL. And I said yesterday, I think that they're the only two that I thought maybe I'd like a little bit lower. So GLINK here again, it's still a little bit above this 3-month. It's come off the 2-month. But again, wouldn't mind seeing this a little bit lower before looking for longs on GLINK just for confluence. And the same with SOL. And that, I think, tallies kind of with what I'm thinking on those charts as well on the traditional exchanges. So GLINK obviously was trying, SOL was obviously trying to bounce off this prior high here, but preferably we want this in the monthly. I mean, it's very interesting to see this chart when you compare this. Let's add a link to this chart so we can see, getting mixed up with GLINK and SOL now. I'm going through things too fast. So if we add the SOL chart to this, you can see I like it. So this is obviously, it shows like really how different it can be. So SOL traditional exchanges had a massive run. When was this? The end of last year, so September to December last year, whereas this was falling off a cliff. So yeah, they can't be used for perfect confluence, but it helps. But that's kind of interesting. I wonder how LINK compares as well, actually. Let me see how LINK compares to LINK. This is why I have these in a separate part of my watch list as well, actually, because I haven't seen, well, they've taken some time building up. I think these are much less traded. So again, this is a better confluence on this. But the difference being is obviously the traditional exchanges made a new high, whereas the Grayscale pair just made a double top. But again, yeah, I'd like to see that coming down a little bit lower. Yeah, so those are just things that are of interest. I don't know if they like it massively helps, but like I say, so it's worth watching Litecoin and BCH. I think from that, and also the privacy coins, ZCSH and Zcash. I think, you know, the other things that are kind of telling me that Bitcoin, which, you know, maybe it's just going to indicate Bitcoin's going to have a lot more sideways, and maybe we are going to get a bit of an alt run. I don't know, but I'm not sure the total 3 and the others really supports that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to say on this. Let's just see where Bitcoin is right now. So still trying to push a little bit, and we'll go in potentially a little while. Yeah, so we're not going to get the confluence here on Ether and Bitcoin at the same time. So we'll see what reaction we get here on Bitcoin. And then if, you know, Ether starts pushing afterwards, then maybe Bitcoin's going to take out this high and go up to those walls at 90k. But like I say, I'm not doing too much on these because I'm finding alts a lot more interesting at the moment. And also when these are very choppy, what I find is I tend to spend loads of time looking at Bitcoin and Ether, then ultimately not really come to any conclusion, at least on the higher time frames, because you've got to wait for more confirmation on the higher time frames. And there's certainly plenty of trades that you can take on the lower time frames. You know, Bitcoin now, for example, is looking like it might create an 8 or 12 hour demand. So if, you know, this creates 8 or 12 hour demand at the end of the day, then potentially you can look for scalp longs off there. If it comes back down into here for a retest, I think Korea didn't quite test down here, and there's confluence with CME, then you could look for like scalps on there. But like with the entries I'm trying to give, so on this chart I do try and give the lower time frame entries, but unless I focus on it a lot, then my accuracy isn't as good. So I have to really think about things, but then I end up spending like wasting a lot of time and then not doing the fun stuff, which is what I prefer, looking at the alts. So finally, before I get on to the alts, let's have a quick look at others. I'm scrolling up and down my ridiculously long watch lists. So yeah, I know I looked at this the other day and I really was. So again, like I struggle with these charts. It's because of the point of possible reversal that we are in this 2 month demand. It's not a good one because it didn't make a significant high, or significant high over the previous high. It's also not a good one because it hasn't broken, you know, we're still in supply up here and it hasn't broken the sellers up there. So it's saying that these buyers aren't particularly strong. That doesn't mean it won't work as a long entry, but you can see, you know, it had the initial bounce and really didn't get very far. It can come up and test here. But what it's telling me at the moment is that the just buying isn't strong. And what we're still seeing is, so far, I'm still, I commented earlier that, of my alerts, the ones that are significantly more reliable are the shorts. Even when the shorts don't look like they're going to work, they seem to just work eventually, and except possibly some of the extremely high risk ones, or the ones which are like really, really running strongly, like for example Fun over the last few days. But excuse me. Yeah, at the moment shorts still seem to be winning, and I think my long entries are kind of 50-50, and even the 50 are probably just giving a really small scalp. So and then it's the luck of the draw if you manage to get the ones that are really running. Yeah, so here, I commented the other day that we made a weekly supply only, by a hair. We just closed slightly below there, and then it had a 5-day and a 3-day inside it, so you can see it's also a 4-day and 3-day, so you can see it wicked, gone straight up into there, and is now dropping back down off there. So again, there's nothing here. Yes, it's possible it's a higher low, but it was possible it was a higher low there, rejected, and then dropped lower. So situation uncertain. We're on the edge of breaking this long-term trend line, which isn't great. And again, like I commented on, I can't remember which chart I was looking at a moment ago. But again, is this is this just a corrective pattern for a secondary drop, either down into here or into a triangle pattern? Again, something I've commented a few times previously. TOTALDEFI, I think, is basically the same. I think it didn't create the weekly supply, but has a 3-day in there. So, these alts are really getting very little bounces. I think that's why the longs really aren't working well, and looking for longs on any higher low. So far, most higher lows have been failing. We're still in a local downtrend. And yes, from when was this, January, we're at the point that we could see a bounce and the higher lows start to come in, but it's taking its time doing it. Similar to here, it had a good few months, or that's almost 6 months of consolidation before an up move. So in the grand scheme of things, this could take significantly longer. Similarly here, June to October 2023, a lot of sideways before we got another decent up move, or in fact this whole area, like it's a couple of years of sideways, but certainly a couple of years of 6 months of sideways here before an up move, 6 months of sideways here before the next up move. So it's possible we have another 6 months of sideways, since Christmas seems our time to go up anyway. And I think my dominance I wasn't liking either. So others dominance again made weekly supply. You can see it's rejected off there. So these are not circumstances I want to look for longs on the alt market particularly. So so far I think I stand by what I've said previously, that I want. I think shorts are the better trades to take. Anything that pumps, short, they drop back down, because they virtually all seem to be dropping back down. So these are some of the alerts that have hit today. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to cover before I move on to these, but I don't think so. Any questions, feel free to put them in chat, if you've got any alt requests or anything. Oh yeah, it was the majors, so I have added, again, I don't want to take too much time on this, but I did add just some aggressive shorts just to see, because so many of these now have 3 month supply that I think it's worth watching the zones. EOS, obviously, as we expected, finally broke out, took its time, and obviously didn't come back to give me my long entry before it happened. I had an alert for, which I've talked about before, from I think a 4 or 5 day supply here, which was more the more aggressive, and then the comment was also, well, we've also got monthly immediately above, so that was the second cross. So obviously we're now up in that zone. This did have a rebranding. I don't know if that's enough to make it break out and suddenly disrespect what the rest of the market's doing, possibly. But yeah, this is an area now I'd start looking for shorts. On the minor chance that we do get another up move, or this does get some strength, as we saw. So on ADA, what we saw when it had the Trump news, it did go through. So ADA went through this monthly supply, wicked into the zone above, and then dropped hard off there. So if this continues to consolidate here, it does have some sort of smaller supplies it could reject up here, but I would probably just wait it out and see if it comes up. It left these short stops up there, before, you know, it didn't even test this upper level, so I'd like wait for higher zones on this. But yeah, like I say, I am definitely more short bias, so keep an eye on it at this level, because there is a possibility it reverses now, and perhaps when Bitcoin's ready to reverse. I've left a long entry in there, but I probably wouldn't be overly confident. I'm trying to think, there were a few others that did sort of similar structures to this, and I just don't think they bounced that well, but this is a 3-day and it will possibly have a 5-day demand in there. And it's got a couple of 12 hours on the way, but again, so if it does reject here, like it could get another push, because some of these just are showing that strength. Hi, Unleashing Your Inner Champion, that's a lovely name. You know, it's up to you if you want to look for longs on these other zones if it does come back and retest. Litecoin, I put a more aggressive alert on weekly supply here. I'll probably remove that if it does drop down into here first. It's showing a little bit more strength again, but obviously it was weaker off the rejection yesterday. We'll see what happens. And this did, it tapped just above the 2-month demand there, so possible this can still hold. Ozymandias again. Hi. Just a small question. Do I take volume into account? Not really, no. And I used to. Well, the only thing I do take volume into account with is patterns, because that's critical, and that's one thing I really learned about patterns, that if they don't have the right volume structure for the pattern, particularly something like head and shoulders, cup and handle, the same, all of those, you've got to look at volume. And I think Wyckoff as well, although I don't use Wyckoff extensively, but I don't really, mainly because we have so many exchanges. So, you know, this I'm charting on Bitfinex because it's got the most history, but this volume isn't really indicative necessarily of what the whole market's doing, because there's so many exchanges. So I mean, yes, maybe I could do everything on Binance, but again, I chart on all the different exchanges, so it would be hard anyway. And also I tend to get, when I compare just volume and price, and maybe I need to study it more, but when I compare just volume and price, like I'm always in a bit two minds, because so from a derivatives perspective, if you want a whole bunch of people to be longing the top, like I said earlier on Bitcoin, for example. So if I see a spike in volume here, is that longs going in, or is that people shorting if I'm looking at a derivatives exchange? I mean, I suppose they offset each other, but yeah, and it's the same, you know, when I look at those, like I won't show it again because my computer will probably take too long to load, but when I look at the CVDs that I show on the Coinalyze chart, again, I'm always in a bit two minds, you know, is it people, or yeah, the CVDs and also the OI, you know, like people just look at OI, and I think the traditional is you want OI to be following price. But then, you know, I've seen OI follow price, but it's like if the price is going up, but if it's a whole bunch of shorts going in, then that can then push it further, because it can then short squeeze all those shorts. So like, I don't know, for me, like I never always maybe get analysis paralysis on it. But more specifically on FX charts, I don't have it for a start. So some of the FX exchanges do, but my broker doesn't. So I don't have it there at all. So I've just kind of got out of the habit of using it. On patterns, you really should use it. That is, like I say, the critical. And one for I'm going to be able to find an example here. Let's have a look at this. So this, for example, head and shoulders here. And it's got the structure you want. So in the case of a head and shoulders, you want, so you want it to go up, it drops, it goes up, it just about takes out the high. So what you want to see is volume weakening here. You want to see like high volume here, less volume, and then less volume, but each. It's the logic. It's not something you really have to learn. So and again, you want this shoulder to be lower than this shoulder. Ideally, you want a sloping neckline. So this didn't have that, because that again shows the weakness in price. So you can look at the price and see if it's doing what you expect, but then you can put volume against it. This is actually not going to be helpful because you can see there's not much. But what you want to see, you're looking at the logic, you're seeing, okay, so you've got buying coming here, strong volume. You want to see lower selling as it dies off, so the volume drops because the sellers aren't very strong. Then as the price goes up again, you want to see less volume than here, if it's going to be a head and shoulders. There's less volume than here because the buyers are getting weaker. Then you want to see volume increasing here because the shorts start coming in, decreasing volume on the right shoulder because the price is coming back up and you don't want to see strong buying, and then obviously strong selling like at the other side of it. So it's the logic behind that. And I've seen, you know, many people will say, I get people who draw head and shoulders for me, they draw really bad ones, and then it goes down anyway, let's say, and then they say, see, at least it was a head and shoulder. I'll say it's not a head and shoulders, and they'll say, see, it was, and I'm like, well, no. And again, it's the probabilities. You can draw a head and shoulders if you want, and, you know, it may or may not play out. I'm sure I could find other ones in here if I wanted to, that did work, that didn't play out, that continued up. So like here, for example, you could have drawn this as a head and shoulders, a very low right shoulder, head and shoulders going to die, and then it makes a new high. But again, and here maybe you can see better on the volume. See, that's big volume rising and then big sell-off, then lower volume here as it went up into the head. There was a spike on this big green candle, but again, that's probably shorts coming in. Then there's a big selling. And then in this shoulder, in fact, you probably did have a decent structure for it. You had very low buying coming in here, but then it still picked up support. But again, this is why I just use supply and demand. Yes, you can use the same logic for supply and demand. But this obviously hit monthly demand here, so that's why it picked up. Yes, you can use the same logic for supply and demand, yeah, if there's a lot of buying. But generally, by virtue, like again, it's like for me, it's not really necessary, because by virtue of the fact, so here, for example, we have a 2 monthly demand. Let me hide the drawings. Just a bunch of candles. Is that a 3 month? No, it's a 2 month. So there's a bunch of candles here making up this 2 month from the way I draw it. So there's these 3 red candles are basically that whole 2 monthly demand. But what this is telling you is there's, in this case, 6 months, but at least in a 2 month zone. Yeah, Binance volume probably is more helpful. But most things I don't chart on Binance, because I chart with more history, because for me supply and demand is more important, so therefore I need the chart history. But what this is telling me is that in this area, so it's a 2 month, what I would call a 2 month demand, but in this area, we've in fact got almost a year of buying and selling. Prices then pushed up, like hard, and it's left, so there were a bunch of people who longed who are happy, but there's a bunch of people who shorted here who have basically been trapped. There's a bunch of people who wanted to get long who were too scared, and they want to get out, and so they want to jump in if the price comes back to this area that they wanted to buy. And yeah, like I said, there's a bunch of shorts that are trapped, and there's a bunch of liquidity. But what this is telling me is that it's a 2 month demand, but there's almost a year in this case, once I drill it down a bit, of activity here. So that in itself tells me there's volume there. In contrast, you know, this green candle going up isn't, you know, a 2 month green candle, but there's not volume in it. Like it pounded up. I think in this case it went pretty fast. What's the so 5 or 6 weekly candles, 5 weekly candles where it just went up, up, up. So there isn't much volume here, and as a result, you can see when it comes down, it just comes back through this. And that's why I look at supply and demand, because, you know, here is where there was lots of activity. There was lots of buying and selling. The buyers and the sellers were battling, and then the buyers won, pushed it up. Here, there aren't really any sellers battling. There's no battle going on. There's just price being pushed up. So yeah, by virtue of that, it's telling me there's high volume here versus here. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But yes, all of these things that you can use. So I mean, I don't know if you watched my second educational video on supply and demand, but it's like there are many entry criteria you can use. So as this comes down into this giant 2 monthly zone, you're then looking at what it's giving you. So if you want to look at volume, if you want to start to see, you know, the selling volume is dying off, so, you know, as this price is coming down here, so let's see. But again, you can sort of see it in price. So I imagine we're going to have, you know, reasonably high volume on these 2 red runs down, probably less volume on this because it's gone less far. You know, there must have been high volume in order for it to push this far. No, must have, it's probably strong, but there weren't any buyers really battling against this sell-off. There weren't any buyers really battling against this sell-off. This one, there's more buyers battling against it, but here what it's still telling me is that the buying is really weak. You know, this is a very weak corrective move, so the fact it's dropped back down through that is not surprising. So for me, I can see this all in the price. And then if I put volume on, let's see if it does match that or not. So yeah, there was a big pump of volume in that candle. But again, like, so this is a big green candle, and I've heard people say, oh, you know, this means green is buy volume. No, it doesn't. All TradingView does is match the color to the color of the candle. So let me hide this. So because this candle is green, that appears to be a lot of buy volume, but it could well equally be a lot of sell volume there. So well, that's why I don't like it. Then you can see, yeah, we've got two big red candles of volume in that drop. Then it's some sideways. Then we do have less volume on this drop. So again, you can say that's a good sign. You know, the selling volume is dying off. But then here we're not seeing the buying coming in. So again, you can look at volume here, but you would also see it in the candles. If there was a big green candle, then you'd know buy volume's coming in. So yeah, anyway, hope that's useful. Let me say quick question, and then I take like 3/4 of an hour to reply. Anyway, let me hide my volume again. But really, after that very, very long response, the actual answer is there's too many exchanges, and it's too much. It's all too much. There's enough data as it is. If somebody could give me an amalgamated, TradingView amalgamated it all together and put all the volume on one chart, which I think maybe it does on the crypto charts, sorry, the ones that are crypto broker, but I'm not sure. But again, then I'd have to redo every single chart, and I'm not willing to do that either, because this takes, obviously, see me take 3 months to do 700 alts. So anyway, so back to Litecoin. So I added a short entry here on weekly supply. I still have the long here on this 3-day. And again, reminder of that disclaimer. Okay, so Bitcoin's finally getting up to my zone of interest. A disclaimer that we obviously have all these trend line stops here. So I'm not convinced that, you know, it might get a bounce beforehand, which is why I'm looking for here. There's a 3-day and there's 2 week, 3 weeks. So there's a whole lot of chop. And if we do have that chop, as we've seen on Ether, it can just run straight through it. So don't limit here. Just wait and see if there's some sort of a bounce. Other than that, you could end up waiting for lower. But yeah, then again, I've got this more aggressive. And I am slightly reticent of these entries, but I thought I'd put them in because, you know, we don't have to take them. We just see what reaction when they hit. I'm reticent of this because this is kind of could be an inverse head and shoulders. You've got the sell-off, the the accumulation pattern, the manipulation of these buyers, and then it can just run straight through it. And this is quite similar, I think, to the bottom we had on Ripple back before the massive pump. I'll have a look at that in a sec. But so it is possible this can just run straight through. It has only swing failed the low. But because I'm not confident of this being on demand, I'm okay with just at least looking for a short there. And you'll see some of the majors I've put it and some I haven't. So Ripple, again, similar. This is an aggressive short, similar to Bitcoin. You know, we've made a higher low. It's a 3-day supply in here. We'll see. We could get some more sideways. You know, it's got a weekly supply, a new weekly supply, and then a 3-day. Rejected immediately off the weekly here. Like, it's possible it runs through this. It's not high probability, but I put an alert there just to see. And then, as I said before, either this 3-day or this 3-day are my next alerts, followed by the annual. Let me show you this here. So you can see here the similarity with what Litecoin's doing, what I just noted, so that we have this sell-off. We've got this accumulation, manipulation, and then massive up move. So be conscious that could happen. I think actually Ripple here had a monthly supply. Oh, interesting, CPOOL. CPOOL's interesting. This is something I wanted to look at. I'll explain in a minute. Yeah, so I think this actually had a monthly supply in here, whereas Litecoin's only got a weekly. So yeah, just be conscious that that pattern could end up happening on Litecoin, and in fact all the majors, because this is the pattern they all made last week pretty much. And finally BCH. So like I say, my reticence on this is because with BCH on the Grayscale pair is strong, and on the traditional exchange, we've got this 3-month supply. It's got trendline stops, like I don't love it. And the difficulty here as well is that it's got a 4 or 5 day supply here with the pink zone. So I've just again set the alert there just to see, as I've said, 3 month supply. It's obviously a large zone, just see if the level gets a reaction. I don't love the low time frame. There's an untested 4 hour just a little bit inside here. But again, just see what reaction we get, if it gets a tradable reaction or if it doesn't. Again, still on a higher low, but if it's a 3 month level, I just think, as what we saw on ETCG, you know, it's possible it comes up here, maybe takes out a few of the stops and then just rejects straight off it. My other reticence with BCH specifically is we are still on 6 month demand. So we now got this very narrow white space between 6 month demand and 3 month supply up here. So yeah, that was a new entry there. Failing that, you know, there's other lower time frames of 12 hours and 4 hours not tested in there. So I just see the zones as and when they hit. BNB, I don't think I added anything new on from previously. I had this alert for 1 day, 2 day supply and then 3 week, and it didn't tap it quite. And then I moved the alert up. It's just hiding there. It's just here, just under this 3 week supply. Again, this is not a high probability short entry. It's coming off yearly demand and then the bigger 2 month here. And I also added, I can't remember if I put that in the last stream, but I did add a possibility of a long here on the 12 hour demand, in the hope of a higher low, or another higher low off this bounce, I guess. You know, this is a yearly demand, so worth watching for the possible higher low there. LINK. So similar here, so I didn't put an aggressive short entry on this. It doesn't have a 3 month supply. It's also on 6 month demand. So I still want to be bullish on this on the high time frame. But again, the low time frames still aren't giving me, you know, like I said last week, I had those aggressive entries for 3, 4, 5 day demands on all of the majors, or most of the majors. Most of them got run through, except for a couple of the more conservative ones that were down at this level. This is now, you know, it's kind of come off a daily demand. It's now got 4 or 5 day supply in there. Let me see, it's a 4 day supply. So, you know, if I start to see these run through, if I start to see them make new 2, 3 day demand and actually hold them, then great, you know. But again, similar to what I've said before, you know, we had a 5 or 6 month consolidation here. You know, this isn't necessarily going to suddenly throw a green candle to the moon. I mean, in their favour with a lot of alts, they did come down, and the majors did actually have bigger bounces, but a lot of the alts came down really, really hard. A lot of the smaller alts. So suppliers all tested and really choppy on the low time frame. So they could, you know, when they do run, they could run straight back up through. But like I say, I still need to see signs of that actually happening first. So yeah, nothing new on LINK. I've got the alert below for the 1 month demand retest if it comes back here. And then the weekly supply up here just because it's choppy. Dogecoin. So this made a weekly supply by a hair. It came down, so it did have this dog. Like, I swear I've had a heart attack when that dog leaps out on screen at me. So anyway, I had an alert for 3, 4, 5 day demand on this. I think the 3 day was higher and the 5 day was lower, and it's come down and it did take it out, wicked through. It's bouncing again. So this, and I just don't like, again, it created a weekly supply, but a weak one, very, very close to price. So not something I want to short, but something I'm a little bit wary of longs on. It is an annual demand, so I do want to be bullish on this. I just don't know if it's going to be too early. You know, I've seen enough situations where, you know, things have hit. So let's say here, maybe this hit a monthly demand there, but then, you know, goes down in deeply inside it. So I don't necessarily want to say this is going to bounce off the top for the next wave yet. Yeah, so no new shorts aggressively on that. I've got the weekly one here, and then there's a monthly supply above. So, and I wanted to watch the lower time frames on these today, actually, because a couple of them created a new daily demand here, and a couple of them created 12 or 8 hour, like Dogecoin here. This has got an 8 hour, hasn't actually quite tested it. But, you know, obviously you can see it's very, very early days on this. And again, if you want to try and get in on this, you know, it is on an annual demand. Know that you're getting in low time frame. Know that there's a risk, you know, I was still in this downtrend, come off 3 day supply, and now made a weekly supply. So could still reject here or here and make a lower low. But if you want to get those early entries with the high risk to reward, if it does make a run from here, then you can do that with tight stops under there or stops under here. AERO was one I did put a more aggressive. This is probably one of the most aggressive alerts. It's one of the closest, so it's weekly supply here. Has kind of held for a swing failure on that. So again, it's not necessarily the highest probability short entry, but again, just want to see the reaction. There's a daily inside, so it can go a bit into this zone. High risk on this, I guess, still also because again, on 6 months demand, had a decent bounced, you know, so it is now just retraced. It's the start of this impulse up move. I'm being slightly more bearish, mainly because of what others and things like that are looking like. So I want to try and get in, you know, some aggressive shorts, just in case, you know, it does just reject here for a big drop. Then that's all of those, and then finally the last few. So these again I have put, so I think on Atom, DOT and SOL I've put alerts on the 3 month, this new 3 month supply, and they're at varying degrees. So they've still got, compared to AERO, so you can see these are a lot further away compared to AERO. They don't necessarily have to get up to the 3 month level, and in all of the cases they're a bit difficult. Actually, DOT had the best confluence, so let's look at DOT first. So this has 3 day supply at the same level as this new 3 month. Again, hasn't made a lower low, can go much higher in the 3 month supply if it wants to, but in the first instance I'm just looking to see if it gives a nice simple, would be nice if it gave a nice simple easy rejection, you know, have just following this downtrend. This is just a sideways consolidation and then drops. Not by mistake, sorry, but then drops off there. It is possible. Possible we're going to get some sort of a triangle pattern here, but yeah, so we just need to see what the reaction is as it comes into there, and then Atom. So similar here, but so Atom has a 4 day a bit lower, and then made this 3 monthly at the same level. So this one I prefer, but again the risk on this is again those trendline stops. It's similar to EOS, that it could still run through there. It wasn't a long entry I wanted here, and as I've said before, in Atom's the bane of my existence. It's kind of got a 3 day flip level here that it's held as support, but I would like to see a rejection here, and then there's a possible high risk long entry there. I will take this off if this hits first, because if this does reject here off 3 months supply, then I'd want to see a bigger drop down to the lower zones. How much do I charge for a premium per subscription? I think at the moment, I don't know, because I change it. I think at the moment it's like 150 for a month, and then cheaper if you want to buy more months. But I'm considering at some stage doing something like, I want to start doing copy trading in the next few weeks. And I'm considering, like, if people want to copy trade me, like letting people join with my referral link. So you can wait until I do that, but that's undetermined time frame. But I think it's 150. But it's in Bitcoin terms, so I feel, unless I changed it, I don't know, you'll have to go and check. If you go to Elisa's premium bot on my Telegram channel, you can see what the price is. I know it used to be in Bitcoin terms. I was thinking of changing it to Tether terms, because obviously then I kept having to update it intermittently, but it might still be in Bitcoin terms. So it depends. Like now Bitcoin's dropped, so you might find it's cheaper than it has been previously. So I'm not sure unless I change it to US dollars, but I've got a feeling like it should be like around the 100, 150 mark, which frankly is cheap for the amount of work I put in. But yeah, and then you will get access to all the alerts, so you see them come up on my screen. You get those obviously real time, so you've just got to learn how to trade them effectively, and I do updates where I can. But the main benefit is getting the alerts as and when they come in, so you know when zones are being hit like this. And you can see from these I'm not perfect, but I'm not that bad. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. It depends. Like these majors, I'm looking a lot more at scalping, and I'm generally not on top of them as much. Sorry, I'm kind of on top of them more, but not all the time, such that I can kind of reverse my opinion or do full analysis every time an alert hits. But the alts are better because they're on higher time frames for the most part, so they tend to be much more reliable, the smaller alts on the non-majors. Anyway, digressing again. So yeah, Atom, if it hits 3 month and then this daily supply in here, I think that's a decent place to look for a short. Long possibly on that 12-hour demand, but yeah, I'm still a bit tentative. I still think Atom can go to lower levels. Did I look at NEAR yet or not? Can't remember. So NEAR was one of the few that actually created a daily demand, and it was looking pretty shitty earlier, but it's actually held the retest of the daily. But again, the 3-day supply immediately above. I haven't put an aggressive short on this because this was one of the ones I was more potentially bullish on. It still hasn't tested this weekly, 2-weekly supply up here. So it could still run through here, but again, has got this 3-day supply immediately above. So everything is now very, very trapped between supply and demand. And finally SOL. So SOL also has a 3-month supply. Still want SOL lower, you know, it's taking its sweet time getting there. And I wanted it down on this monthly demand for a while. I'm hoping when I don't wait for ages for things to get there, then they just run straight through them. You know, and this is that very risky pattern that I've drawn many times as well, that triangle. The reverse of what I kind of said earlier, so you've got the accumulation and then manipulation and then expansion can go all the way down here. But again, and I've said this previously as well, that a lot of alts are looking, or the majors particularly, are looking like this start of the in the head and shoulders. So, but we're just kind of waiting to see if we get this, you know, is that going to go up? Or are we going to get the this lower high here, and at what point, you know, is it going to be a much lower high? Is it going to be an aggressive, and that's less of a head and shoulders, or is it going to be just, you know, the move up into this area and then the bigger drop? But that, I think, is kind of what I'm expecting on alts. It's just obviously taking its time to do that. But yeah, so I put, again, this is a challenging one because it made a weekly supply right next to price. It's got a daily up higher inside it, and then obviously it tested, I think I commented in my last stream that it tested this 3-month supply already. So it was where it tested it before it was confirmed. So really here, I don't know if it's going to react at exactly the same level. Like sometimes that happens. I prefer to trade supply and demand rather than support and resistance. But again, we can just see what happens when it gets there. Yeah, so that's that. So yeah, there's reasonable confluence on those in distance, except for AERO, like I say, which is slightly more aggressive. But they don't have to be perfect, but because obviously they have waves. But like if we get AERO hitting quite soon, then I'm going to want to see Bitcoin. Let's see what Bitcoin's doing off. It's just pumped off my... okay, so it's heading up to my possible entry on that. So now I'd probably look for the confluence of the daily there and maybe this ether hitting 4-hour supply in here. I think it's 4 hours, you know, maybe it's a 2-hour. It's not even a 4-hour, it's a 2-hour up here. But yeah, so obviously that's moving, which must mean ETHBTC is falling. I just got a message on Telegram, so let me just check what that says. Okay, I'll answer later. Let me just put a comment. The question is, I don't know if he'll watch it, so we'll see. But so I said that gold might make a 12-hour railway tracks. I think I might have said that at the start of the stream as well. I actually did. So yeah, they've asked what railroad tracks is. I don't actually know if that's traditional. I don't know where I got that from. I remember it's one of the things I learned early on in my trading, but I don't know if it's like a proper, if there's a proper candlestick term for it. And I think also, I think I might have looked it up once, and I think it might have just said 2 candles, but I always associate it with pretty much 4 candles. In this case, there's a couple of greens at the start, but when you're looking at green, red, they're all at the same price. So you're looking at, basically what you're looking at is a tight consolidation where the opens and closes are at the same level, so it's finding support and resistance at the same levels. That's a terrible drawing, but you get the idea. And then what it means, like at the top or at bottom, is that you're getting that consolidation and that you might then get reversal. Because it means the buyers are weakening off and the selling is coming in, and so you want this red candle to close, you know, either the base here and then the next candle to close below. You want to start to see a couple of red candles, and then you can start looking at shorting the retest. It's quite clean though, and I tend to find, clean tops or bottoms get manipulated. Let me try and see if there's a similar any other similar pattern that I can see from the past. Yeah, so I mean, you can see everything else is just messy. So if it's that clean, I mean, here's maybe a similar one. So you can see actually that had railroad tracks and then did close below and then went straight back up through it. Didn't actually quite take out the high, but you know, it was, the pattern ended up getting manipulated anyway. There's a bit of a railroad tracks one, so it closed the red below, and then you could have shorted the retest, which I'm not sure if that came from up there or if it closed back, but it would have given you a decent scalp short off that one at least. Okay, so S&P is now hitting my zone as well, so that's a nice confluence for Bitcoin. So yeah, we'll just see if we get some sort of a reaction here. Anyway, let's move on to the alts because that's what I'm here for. And I want to, yeah, it's been an hour, so I don't really want, I want to try and do some of these alt videos, chart loads, without going through Bitcoin in immense detail at the same time, because otherwise every video is going to be insanely long. Let me also just light a cigarette quickly and have a bit of a drink. And then I like dribble it all over my face on stream. Nice work. Can't take me anywhere. Okay, so alts. So yeah, given you asked me about premium, let me show you. So you've probably seen it before, but just to show. So this is my alt TA channel. So if you join premium, you get this. You put some random comments in here, and I put random analysis in it as well. But most of the channels is this. So GLSTOL 4-day supply, L3 2-day demand coming off monthly supply, but also from monthly demand flipped weekly and 5-day. I don't even know what they're like. Sometimes I write the comments too quickly, but you know, I need to look at the chart and then I'll know what I meant by that. So yeah, it's coming off monthly supply, so it's coming down from monthly supply, but also up from monthly demand. And I guess at this 2-day level, it's flipped to weekly in a 5-day zone as well. So I'll have to look at the chart to see. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm like slightly indecisive, so I'll put the alert in, but if it's coming off monthly supply, that means it's a risk to look for longs on a 2-day demand. But then there's also, if there's a monthly demand at the low, then it can just be just like an indecisive, and it may just mean like if you take it as a scalp. CPOOL as well is something I wanted to observe, so I'll show you that in a minute. But most of them come through as just as simple. So XTZ, 3-day, 3-month supply, SPAR, 2-day, 3-day demand, and 1 month. SLING, 2-day demand, AERO, 4-day demand, look for stop hunt. So yeah, you can see some of these. So I've got all the most recent ones on this layout at the moment. So you can see AERO here, 4-day demand, look for stop hunt. That will be there's a low here, so you can use that as a metric for, you know, where your invalidation is. SLING here, this actually is, so again I'll just show you this actually, the 2-day demand, I think I put it in a bit too early yesterday, so it barely confirmed 2-day demand there, but obviously this is an aggressive entry, so I would say this is maybe a little bit risky to take, but I try and put in some that are higher risk and some that are lower risk, and it's just up to people. So this is obviously a fairly hideous chart and there's not much price action on it, so all the newest stuff, so you can get some really good stuff like this if you do have those aggressive risky entries, but then obviously a risky entry is more likely to fail. So SLING itself is not a very nice chart, but I'll run through what we've had in April so far. So what I also do is add them all to, so this is a new April watch list. So I add them to a watch list so people can go and look, and I share this watch list, the link in premium. BTC creating a weekly demand possibly. Okay, I'll have a look at that before. I think I'm not convinced by that. But hold on, let me put that back. Well, so firstly with the weekly, it's obviously we're on Wednesday, so we've got 4 days till that happens. So in order for this to create a weekly demand, where do we need to close? Okay, yeah, so yeah, possibly, but we've got 4 days till that closes. So I wouldn't get, that's not something, I'll put the level in there, but that's not something I would get overly confident about now because it's too long till it closes. But you're right, if it does create a weekly demand, then you can certainly look for longs on that next week, but we'd need to see a close above this last red cross, close up there with a nice strong green candle, and then we'll see. and then obviously we've got monthly supply immediately above anyway. So yeah, fair enough. Might create a weekly demand, but bear in mind 4 days till that closes. So anyway, let's go on to the watch list of all. So yeah, like I say, so they all go onto this watch list, and anyone can go and look. And I suggest, you know, so people who are scalpers can look at the alerts as they hit. So for example, now that you would get a, you know, potentially you could have got a long on this if you've been brave and taken aggressive entry. I think that's pretty high risk, so you have to know what you're doing on the scalp, and what you're looking like then is what are the lower time frames giving you. So in this case, you know, I had a big dump into there, and then, you know, it was given a couple of 15-minute demands, so you could have entered here, but obviously it's extremely high risk. But per my educational video, like I was talking about earlier, like there's various strategies for doing this. It's a big zone, so you've got strategies where you enter now, put your stop underneath the 4-day and just hope it goes up. You can look at, you know, this has got a weekly supply immediately above, so, and you know, you draw all the time frames, all the lower time frames. So there might be a new daily supply today, so you might want it to get above there. You might want to wait for the daily to close if you're trading this on a higher time frame. You know, maybe you want to watch it for 3 or 4 days. So that's why, again, I create the watch list, because then people can then come back and have a look at what hit earlier in the month. What else is on the watch list that might have hit a zone, and then, you know, if this takes, so for example here, like let's say that had hit a zone, taking a few days to consolidate, or that's the case a couple of weeks, before you actually look for the entry. So anyway, in the case of AERO, this is obviously a very, very high risk chart now. So this one, I think, you know, I was bullish on previously. It did have a monthly demand, but it's now flipped that to a monthly supply. So as I was talking about earlier, this is a monthly demand here. Lots of alts look like this. Varying heights. It was a weak monthly demand because it hadn't broken the high. So while I had alerts for possible longs on it, as I talked about in streams around that time, you know, these were low probability entries. And I think, you know, they did get a couple of bounces on the lower time frames on the daily. So yeah, I did get a alert on the daily. I would have reset the alert for, you know, another bounce, but again, didn't get back past supply. But this is what I commented earlier, you know, that some of these now have these extended down moves. It's got a weekly supply in there, which was already tested, a weekly supply here, which hasn't been tested. But, you know, it's possible that this now can, you know, if the market does get strong, that this can just run through everything. So certainly worth watching these alerts, and that's why I keep putting them in. You know, in the bigger picture, I don't like the look of this at all, but we are on support. Possibly we'll go down into that 12-hour there, like obviously hopefully you don't want to go down there, but certainly, you know, it is on support. It's certainly worth watching. It's a, you know, clear double top here, but could get a bounce before the drop, and that bounce, if it does get one, it could be significant. It can run through all those stops. So yeah, that's worth watching an alert on something like that. Let's just start from the top of the list. So WAV, oh gosh. Okay, yeah, so this was one of the extremely high risk ones I had. So this hourly demand, I put, you know, so the alert would have gone in, and I think it said very high risk. So it did actually give it, so that gave a nice scalp. So while something like this, you know, when I look at, you know, the daily, for example, it looks like I've just made a really bad judgment call there. Like I said, there are all on different time frames. So for people who are trading scalps, something like this, you know, if you traded this, it's a high risk trade, and it's entirely up to you as to how you trade. But if you'd entered on that alert with your stop just below here, and let's say you just held it to that first high there, that's a 3.3 hour trade. So if you risk $100, you would have made $300 in a couple of hours. And this is my much preferred way of trading. You know, if you had held it to up here, you know, and then it would have been pretty lucky, because I think knowing it was going to reject there would have been hard, you know, but that was a 4.7 hour trade. You would have had to endure it coming back almost to break even first. You know, even then, this is why I always say trade zones, because even then, you know, even if you didn't get out because you were being greedy and thinking this was going to go to $1, at least here it gave you, you know, this is not, I was going to say days when I'm not on the daily chart, but it gave you hours, you know, 12 hours or so of just going sideways at your entry to kind of go, actually, this is not going up, and move your stuff up to break even. before getting knocked out of it. But yeah, so I need to update the chart on this, but yeah, now I'll be short biased on this. Most likely it's still high risk shorts, and I think I've got another couple coming, but yeah, I probably would be looking for shorts on retest of around the same level that I entered. So again, like what I find generally quite reliable is if levels I have do get broken, then shorting a retest in the area that I got my long got broken is a decent trade. This is still a very, very new chart though. You know, I try and pick on TradingView like which one has the most history, but there can be, you know, if this has been released on DEXEs before SEXes, it might have history from DEX Screener. So if you are trading these things, it's always worth going and check. I can't check every single one of them on DEX Screener when I'm throwing the alerts in. So, but it's worth checking that this doesn't have history that's telling you that this is actually a strong long entry because it's hit a monthly demand because it was on DEX Screener for a year. Dog in me. This was a lovely short. So again, this is why I say you need to analyze yourself to try and get the entries on alert. So some of these are, you know, when I get more active on them. So this entry I had was just a break of the trend line. Then I looked and I said, you know, we're looking for short on the retest. This had also, so I did have a look at a couple of the other history charts, but the ones on TradingView. So the all-time high from the WETHE chart on base was here, and then the all-time high from CoinEx is a little bit higher. So I knew that the swing failed there, so I'm then going, okay, we've got trendline stops here. It did come up for a retest in a 12 or 8 hour supply up here, gave a decent drop, held demand, and then back up in here we had a 12 8-hour supply there. I think it did wick slightly through that zone, but again, depending on where a stop was, again, really nice reaction straight off there. This now does have a monthly demand below, and the difficulty sometimes, actually this is on MEXC, so that's okay. So the difficulty sometimes I have with looking at the demands on DEX Screener is if nobody knows they exist, yeah, while there could potentially be demand there, if there was such low volume from a previous, from being on the DEX, I don't know if that demand as such is carried over to SEXes. But anyway, because this has a new monthly level there and a 2-week level there, I've set an alert, you know, more aggressively. I would look to take out those stops, and then, you know, I don't like the fact this has a big green candle there, so the nearest daily demand is lower. So, you know, be a little bit careful if this comes into that level. And I think I put that in the alert anyway. Yeah, so 1 month demand, 2 week just inside, but a low time frame, a bigger gap to the daily below. So yeah, we'll just see what happens, but again, this might come into monthly demand here, so then maybe we'll get that bigger move up after that. I think I did, yeah, so there is an alert hiding here, so I did also alert for a re-entry on 4 8-hour supply here. I was hoping for that retest. I did it actually last night, so it was kind of up probably at the start of this candle, so it didn't give the retest I wanted, but I probably wouldn't like it that much if it comes up again off a higher low. I'm not sure. I like to leave the alerts in anyway, because even if I don't take them, just to see what reactions they may or may not give. So that's dog in me. KMNO. So again, I had a long alert here. I think I had to reset this. It was a little bit early, but again, you can see that's had a reaction. So, and again, what I'm looking for now, it is those retest entries, but the ones I'm more confident of. So while you saw on the majors me looking at shorting supplies in here, I'm looking more at long entries where they didn't make the 3-month supply or monthly supply immediately above, where they didn't make a weekly supply. Let's just check this didn't make a weekly. You know, it's come down. In this case, it's got 6-month demand. In the bigger picture, it's a GB 6-month demand because it's from when the price started, but it's also hit this 3 weeks. So you're then looking, so you've got the initial bounce off the first alert off the 3-week demand there. So like I said, you can trade those first alerts, but then know that the first alert, the chances are it's going to go up nearest supply. In this case, a 2-day supply up there. It's rejected off it, and then we look for the higher low, which we may or may not get. So in this case, it's got a 3-day demand there on the higher low. But that's what you're looking for. So then you're looking for, is there still very much an is this going to make a higher low situation? You know, it's still in a local downtrend, but we've hit a higher time frame uptrend level. So what then I would normally do is I then pull the alert down to the next zone, So again, be conscious with these alerts, I don't necessarily know what's happened in between. So I'll pull this alert down here. I'll set it for 3 day, still a 3 day demand inside 6 months. I'll set it for here, but I don't know if this is just going to reject here and come straight down into this level, which means it will probably be a better zone. But also, you know, if this goes up to the moon first, and then comes back down here and doesn't hold a higher low, then this is going to be a much lower probability entry. You know, or similarly, if this are created, oh, just move the alert back again by mistake. Hold on, let me just undo that. Did I not just move that alert down? Am I going crazy? Maybe it just doesn't like. Okay. Yeah, anyway, but similarly, I don't know at this point, you know, so if I just pull that down and I don't do full analysis on this, which sometimes I don't, you know, maybe this has created a monthly supply here. So this is going to be, again, much lower probability. So again, that's why I say you need to do your own analysis, because I'm not necessarily fully on top of, you know, when alerts hit, you know, did this create a monthly supply right above price, and therefore you shouldn't be looking for longs at that point in time. Layer. So this I've done a few charts on, and I've compared it to L3 the other day. Obviously it can still break out, but I'm kind of like been looking aggressively for shorts just on the basis that, you know, it's kind of tipped over this all-time high, and then rejected. You know, it hasn't broken demand, so there's this is still holding 3 day demand here, and it made a daily yesterday. But what I was hoping for was a close below this level, 1.45, for it to flip this daily to supply, to then to be maybe a little bit more confident of shorts. Given I just had that L3 alert come in, I'll show you that again. So on this, and again, like, you know, if I'm being particularly aggressive, sometimes they're not going to work. So I obviously show. So we had the alert go here for the orange, just looking for a swing fail over that level. So went up for a couple of candles and then came back down. Then I looked for a short on this hourly supply in here. Turned out to be a little bit too aggressive. Always look for if there are zones untested above or below so this is the more aggressive entry on the 1 hour supply there, but you can clearly see here there was a 30-minute zone that hadn't been tested. So it has come up into this 30-minute, came up a few times. It would have been a bit scary if you had shorted there, that it looked like it wanted to break out, but has now broken down. But again, we want to see the confirmation. So hasn't really, would like to see on the daily for it to close below that level. Again, I'm looking every time frame, 12 hour, 8 hour, 4 hour. So I think this has now created a 4 hour supply. So again, you can now look 4 hour supply for an entry there if you want to. But again, know what you're doing, that this is still in consolidation. It's still in an uptrend until it breaks that low. And then this is now, it's now formed a sideways consolidation here, but this, you know, it's still possible that this is going to do that. You know, it hasn't got significant supply, or it's got supply, but the supply hasn't broken demand. So it's not weak. So say, same as here, for example, that here it made supply, when it dropped here, closed back below, did actually get the retest, but then didn't drop much lower. So here you could have shorted here on the retest of that zone, but it's not strong supply because it hasn't broken demand. And it hasn't broken structure, and in fact the last wave of structure is this wave. So, you know, you can still short but know what you're doing. You know, similar here, this short entry on that zone there would have wicked a little bit through that zone, gives you a scalp, but it's still in an uptrend. So this whole thing is still in an uptrend. And the difficulty I have is I swear every time I look for longs, like if I'd look for longs on this 3 day demand, you can guarantee that would have broken there. If I look for aggressive longs near the high, and I'll show you L3 because that's exactly what happened there, where I kind of went, oh, this actually looks like it might break out, put in aggressive long somewhere around similar here, and then it went up. It did have a couple of candles for a scalp up, but then just died. But anyway, let's show you L3. So this is why I said that looks like L3. I mean, it's a bit different because it has taken out the high, but the structure that we have here on L3 is quite similar to what layer is doing. And it was exactly the same here that I kind of went, you know, because in this case, it hadn't taken out the highs. So I said, oh, you know, it dropped here to take out some of these stops, which is what I was wary of. Let's look for a long here, see if it take out the highs. And, you know, it did hold for, you know, a day or so, but didn't manage to make a new high from there and then just dumped. Did manage to get some short entries on this, on retests. But, you know, there's always this point of indecision. You know, here it's still in an uptrend. Okay, there I was more confident of shorting, but again, probably still had a weekly demand or something here, so I was still potentially looking for longs in there, but that obviously didn't work. Got the bigger drop, get the long from here, short from there, long from there. You know, you're trying to trade as much as you can all these waves. Excuse me. Okay, so now what have we got? So this is, what did I say? 2-day demand coming off monthly supply. Is it? But also from monthly demand. Hold on, let me look. I don't know why I've said it's coming off monthly supply. Oh no, it is coming off monthly supply. So this actually, so I'll put that monthly. So this did have a monthly supply here. It swing failed it. But so it's got a monthly demand and it's got a monthly supply. So that's why I've said that on the comment. But then I've said it also flipped a weekly. So yeah, okay. So it's got this weekly. It had a weekly supply here, which it went back through, and a 5-day supply. So it's flipped that of, or 4-day maybe. Yeah, so it had a 4-day supply and it had a weekly supply, so it's possible it's flipped those to demand. And then at the same level, it's made a 2-day. So again, potentially might give you a long here. But like I say, these long entries aren't that reliable. So I know I tend to put them because I know people like to be long biased, and then also just in case the market does get a turnaround. But this for me, I wouldn't be overly confident on, particularly given the swing fail of this monthly zone. It may give a bounce. What I would potentially, I guess, hope for on this, if I was still continuing to trade the waves, is possibly a bounce here, back up into monthly supply there to retest. What you find quite often is if we swing fail a monthly supply, then it could well reject the level on a retest. So I would see if there was an 8-hour or 4-hour or something at that level, and then look for a possible drop from there. But like I said, this is still a monthly demand, so we've got swing fail of monthly demand, monthly supply, could swing fail monthly demand. But anyway, so that's L3, which is one of the new ones that's come up since I've just been doing this stream, and CPOOL was the other new. CPOOL and GXLM were the other new ones, so I haven't looked at these myself yet. So CPOOL, yeah, I think this was. I did look at this yesterday, so I was bullish on this previously, which is why I had the long entry, so similar to AERO that I just looked at, that we had a monthly demand, it swing failed it, it retested it here, had the weekly demand as well, so that was that long entry, came back up, didn't really go significant to a significant supply here and dropped back down. Then it had a daily demand there, looks like, or a 2-day demand, it looks like it might have taken a bit of a wick through the zone. So again, I'm just a little bit indecisive. This is not something I really want to trade. What did I put? Yeah, I said I want to observe, as I was quite bullish on this based on the 2-month demand, also the monthly demand and the swing fail retest of the monthly. And also I think there's an easy stop run upwards on this, but now it's made 3-month supply. So it's a difficult one, you know, this is a 3-month supply at this level. So again, I don't want a long right in here. If people got the long here, that's fine. Hold it, put your stop to break even and see if this runs through. As I've said on a lot of these charts, you know, these are all choppy, retested zones up here. So while it's got 2-week supply here, which is untested, once I look down at the lower time frames, you can see that all these zones have been tested on the lower time frame. So it is possible this gets a stop run through everything, which is what I would have wanted before I saw the 3-month supply created. So it was more I just want to observe that on CPOOL. And then GLSTOL now at 4-day supply. So again, it's another similar to the majors. It's an aggressive short entry. And I'll just again move the alert up to the 3-day in case it runs through. So again, as I've said previously, you know, if this does run up here, if this fails, just because I can't watch it. So if I'm trading it myself, then I'll start looking at 8-hour, 12-hour, 4-hour, etc. to see what entries might happen off this. If it's going to get dropped down into here, this is a high risk long entry. If it runs through, what you just then need to be careful of is this doesn't all flip to demand, because there's a 3-day supply, you know, so obviously this maybe is trying to be in an uptrend now. At the moment, we're still in a downtrend. That's still what we expect. But if it's trying to reverse, and even if it's in a downtrend, it can still do that. But if it's trying to reverse, then you're looking for demand to start to be created and hold. So hence you look for the possibility of a long entry here. But I think when I go through more of the alerts, I'm going to see a lot of these that have failed. So, but I'm still enter them just to see what happens. I'm here to get trades, not to just specifically have a high win rate for my alerts. Yeah, anyway, so you can look for shorts on that. Let's just come in and let's go back to the list. So I just looked at, well, dogging me KMNO I did look at, I believe. Yeah, layer and wool. Okay, so wool's the next one. So again, this was an aggressive short. And yeah, I looked at this again. So now actually you can look at shorts again on this because some of these are coming up and taking out these highs. This is a giant wick on the MEXC chart. And then I put the all-time high from Bybit there. I can't remember if I looked at more. So anyway, yeah, that would have been a short based on the hourly supply. But it's also flipped. The other thing I was looking at yesterday, which that blue line hadn't confirmed yet, but whether it was going to flip that daily. So this is exactly what I mean. If this holds up here, I'm going to draw it as a 2-day, because if it holds up here till the end of the day, this will now be a 2-day demand. But by the time this alert hit, and it stayed up there long enough for this to confirm into a daily demand. So when it's come back down into that zone, it's then held that. So it didn't quite hold the 4-hour demand, but you can see that it's now tested that new daily zone and it's moved up from there, and we expect a higher high if it's going to come off a daily demand like that. So yeah, that's one that would have given a little scalp for anybody who wanted to trade that. So yeah, I'll keep an eye on this. Like, I don't want to, yeah, I'm always better at looking at aggressive shorts and aggressive longs. But like I say, because every time I try and long something like this, it just dies. But even this is still high risk at this stage. You know, it's still a very, very new listing. I'm not sure as well. So the other thing is, where is it listed? If it's just listed on MEXC, then it's more likely to just die. If it's listed everywhere, which this is, then it could go either way. But certainly for the MEXC only listings, look for aggressive shorts like these, because if they do die, they'll die to zero. Carver, I made a mistake on. I know that. So Carver, unfortunately, yeah, so this entry long was a mistake. It's a mistake. I knew it was a mistake at the time I made it, and I made the comment accordingly. So Carver has an annual supply here. You know, it's come off. It came off monthly supply here. It created the annual later and has tested it here in March. So this, I think this test, yeah, so this December it closed here below that level, and it's come up and tested that. So, but when I looked at this before, this candle was still strong for March, and it looked like it was going to flip this monthly supply to monthly demand. That actually ultimately didn't happen. It closed back below, so that was this entry in the hope that this weekly demand, I think it might have been higher actually, I'm not sure what's happened there, but it was the hope that this weekly demand was going to hold and we were going to get another push. And I said, and I quite like the look of it at that point in time. Like you can see now, it looks ugly, but I think I was looking at it, you know, on this retracement before thinking, you know, it's going to bounce here for another up move. But I did comment that it was coming off annual supply. But you know, again, learn my own lesson. Like, don't trade against the high time frame. Supply and demand, basically. This obviously had a big drop yesterday, so there was something that happened on Binance yesterday which resulted in a number of coins having a sharp drop, and I'm going to get to ACT as the next one, and I think I had 2 or 3 that came in at the same time. Carver did drop straight back into monthly demand, so this now finally actually is a good entry for possible long. But again, just be conscious it's coming off the annual supply, so let me show you that annual chart. So if you get a rejection like that off annual supply, my expectation is it takes out this low. So we've hit a monthly demand, so that's nice. It's potentially could end up in a monthly swing fail of those. So just, you know, you need to be careful on this, but you need to see if it picks up. But you know, that rejection of annual supply, like really, I do expect it to take out that low ultimately. But it can give obviously weeks of up in between if it wants to. So yeah, just be a little bit careful on that, and also it's a little bit late now. It would have been a really nice entry on the re-entry today, in fact. So it has made a daily supply here. given it's a monthly demand, I won't be looking for shorts. It could also run up through those stops, but possible short entry here on this daily and or retest as a 2-week above. Yeah, I can't say, yeah, this is not a good long entry now. It was a good long entry yesterday and or earlier today on this retest. Yeah, so it did give a nice retest down here earlier today. But yeah, don't be long in this now. ACT is just, oh my gosh, awful. So I don't really know what happened with this. Like, so somebody, like somebody shared with me that Binance had a, you know, it changed its liquidation levels, and then resulted in a 3.7 million liquidation, which I guess on a shitcoin is a lot. But that liquidation happened at 0.187, like it was really high. So you know, did the liquidation, I don't know how that works, you know, like, so if somebody's liquidated at 1.187 or around here, around the top, is that the cause of this whole drop? Or does that maybe just triggers a lot of other liquidations? Let me just look at the lower time frame. So I guess, yeah, maybe that liquidation was that first 5-minute candle, and then everybody else FOMO sells because obviously it's broken below. I guess also arguably, so the alert that I had that went on this would certainly not have been tradable, and I said it was something to leave anyway. So they created a weekly supply. I can't remember the exact comment I put on it, but I was worried that it would take out these stops anyway. I think, I don't know if it was what it was. Yeah, so there was a weekly demand. It was a 2-week demand. That's what it was. So it did have a 2-week demand here, but I put a comment saying that it could take out the stops, and obviously when the alert went, it had gone straight through it anyway. So that, and I also put a disclaimer like, just leave this. I said leave it also if it's coming off monthly supply. So obviously it rejected monthly supply there. And now we're back down in a very dubious monthly demand, again dubious because of that candle at the start, so this can come a lot lower. But you know, this kind of sell-off is normally a delisting type sell-off, so but I don't know, like, I mean, if Binance changed the what do you call it, the leverage requirements. So yeah, I think I might have said before that Binance changed liquidation levels. That's not right. Binance changed the leverage requirements. So I don't know if that's going to trigger that big sell-off. Obviously, it can still come all the way back down to the start of this move here. So I can't remember if I hadn't actually had an alert there that's gone, or whether I just left the cross there. I don't know if I reset the alert anyway, but you can look for longs on this if you're brave. You know, it could still retrace a lot more of this candle, so I'd say wait and see if it gives you. Also, and check the other exchanges as well, because MEXC may have a monthly there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that monthly exists on other exchanges. Dago. What's going on with this? So some of these at the top of the list hit a bit earlier, and therefore might have dropped a little bit deeper in demand. So Dago here, I think I had a daily and then a 2-day demand, so obviously it's come down a little bit deeper inside that, and it's also got the overarching weekly. I think, yeah, like again, I wanted to be bullish on this because it's got a 6-month, made it had a 6-month demand. But obviously it was only made by a hair, and it's now back below the level. So, but it's got a 6-month level down here as well. Yeah, so I'm in two minds about the structure on this. Like previously, I would think I was wanting to be bullish on it because it had the 6-month demand. Obviously, it can come much deeper inside, which it has. But I'm seeing too many alts have broken these 6-month demands now. So I just don't know. You know, again, you can just see there's a, you know, it's a giant triangle, just a sideways consolidation pattern. So, you know, we're at the bottom end of the triangle, so that's fine to look for longs. But and we do have a 6-month demand. But yeah, again, be conscious that this could now just reject. So I should just draw that 6-month. I always draw the 6-month level in much earlier, but just because it might reject at the same level. Don't think it made a 3-month or a 2-month or a monthly or anything. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, this is not, again, it's not a high probability long. Might bounce from here, but might not. Yeah, it's not something. At least had a decent drop off from there, you know, and it's got stops here, so even if it just goes up and gets through up into that daily supply, taking out these stops, that's a possibility. Not horrendous, it's not the best long, but it's not horrendous. Obviously there's shorts up there. Pippin was another higher risk one, so another example of one where I've just reset the alert for lower. It's got a daily demand here. It is one that has history on the DEXE, but I think, you know, now it's got quite a lot of history on here as well. It is in a monthly demand, so again, it was worth watching this daily and then this 4 or 5 day below for a possible bounce inside the monthly, but yeah, don't really love it. It's also now got 2 weekly supply here, so I've also put a short entry on that, but it's something that could be scalpable. But no sign of bouncing as yet, but you can see. Keep an eye on it. Elon, so this was one of the ones along with Cerebro that I really liked previously because I liked this sort of rounding bottom, but it just didn't get very high off there, and now it's started to break some demand. This was kind of a last hurrah level. I did put a note on this alert saying, you know, if it gets here, I'm probably becoming a bit more bearish on it. When I look back at both this and Cerebro, again, this is my bad on, excuse me, my bad on trying to preempt breaking of supply. You can see this has got 2 week supply. It was only weak because it only closed a little bit below, but each of the last 3 candles have closed still below this supply, and it's now potentially rejecting off the bottom of it again. So, you know, while you can preempt breaking of supply, like, you know, you're looking at the lower time frame patterns to see, you know, that until it breaks that high, it hasn't broken this 2 week supply. And I think in this case, it had created a weekly demand, and it's that alert there and the 3 days. So arguably, you know, so while it looks like this alert was wrong in inverted commas, if it's a weekly demand, you know, if you're trading this alert here, then your stop should be down here, so you're still in play. You've got a risk here that these trend lines stop. So, you know, it's something to keep an eye on because, you know, it is now starting to make a move off this level. But, you know, really I wanted it to kind of hold higher and break higher and get out of this 2 weekly supply a little bit sooner than it has. Don't like that it's drifting down, because I think in the case of Cerebro, it's in a similar structure, also had the 2 weekly supply, and I feel like Cerebro has now broken the low. So be a bit careful on that now, but you can keep an eye on it because it is still holding support. Oh yeah, DEXE was one of the other ones that fell off a cliff yesterday, and I did say also keep an eye on this. It was a bit late because it had already bounced, but, you know, this has hit an annual demand. It had this really nasty wick all the way down on MEXC, I think to like 0 or somewhere, like it took out multiple alerts all the way down to this 3 week demand. So I found it super interesting. It still holds, always holds a level. Yeah, so I said to keep an eye on this because it has hit this yearly level if I ignore the wick. But again, it would have been a little bit of a hard one to get into because I think by the time I saw it, it probably was already mid-bounce. But yeah, if this comes back down, I might put another alert there actually. If it comes back down and retests the level, it's worth watching. Similar to how Carver has come back down that we saw a minute ago. 1 year demand retest. Worth watching that. Yeah, and I won't look for shorts on that on the basis that it's just hit that demand. BMT was a higher risk one, but again, something worth watching because if it does run, it's going to run through all those stops, but that's just hit a daily demand. Keep an eye on that. It's still too early. And, you know, you need to, again, like I say, just draw your supply and demand. So there's not a daily. First daily is there. I haven't actually got an alert on this, but I would potentially expect this to run through quite a lot if it does hold. So keep an eye on that one. It's still, gosh. It still has now made a new 12-hour supply immediately above, so obviously clearly still got this 8-hour downtrend. It's got a little bit wick off the bottom finally on this, but again, you can see, you know, every little bounce this has had doesn't really hold, so entirely up to you if you want to trade this now. I think to me it's too early. It could still run down to the 4-hour at the bottom of that up move. It could also run down there because it didn't get tested. Could also go to 0 because it's a new coin and you know, it's very much in a drift of death, so don't preempt a breakout on this, but keep an eye on it. Broccoli, so there's another one. I had the alert set for 3-day weekly demand. I did also have a disclaimer on this that trend line stops here, could also drop back down into there if it wants to. rather annoyingly missed my alert here at the highs, and I think now, so it's got a 2-week supply there, it's now got a 3-day supply in there, and a daily it's tested. So again, I've left the alert up there. If it comes back up, it is on a weekly demand, and even if it does stop hunt this level and it bounces here, then it's likely to take out that this consolidation and go higher. Else it's just going to break down, because again, I'm still in a downtrend, retest, it could just break down. So again, not high probability longs, but something to watch. ZLC was another one of the short entries I had in more aggressively, and so I gave you this alert last week when I did the ZENs on my last, on Monday in fact. 3-day supply in here, and aggressive, I had a handful of aggressive short alerts, ideally on the ones that were more bearish. This one was slightly riskier because it is trying to find support in this area. But that had a nice reaction off there yesterday, at least on the low time frame. It's made 8 and 12 hour demand in here. It's come up for a retest today. So we'll see, like I might be horribly wrong, but this again was an area that I wanted to look for a long that failed, so then look for a short around the zone that broke the demand. But it is an aggressive short there, very aggressive short, so yeah, don't enter that now. I don't think now you want to check this reaction is going to do something, and if it comes back down into here, then you look for new supply to short off, but I wouldn't be shorting this again now. DF, we like lovely short entry on that. If only we knew in advance like which were the high probability or the ones that are really going to run. Although even this, it did take a week or so to actually move, and again was yesterday one of the ones that really just fell off for reasons unknown. Fell back into weekly demand. It's got a 6-month demand just below, so I think that's the aggressive entries on the weekly or 5-day, and then I've reset the alert for the 6-month in case it wants to go deeper. My reticence on this a little bit is that it's got that double bottom there into the 3-week that hasn't been tested, and obviously the fact it did come down really hard. But something that comes down really hard can bounce really hard if it wants to. So yeah, certainly keep an eye on that. Maybe a little bit too early. If it gets a drift slowly down into here, then you might get it with a move later. It's also off yearly supply. That's the only other thing. Like I can see now, there's a yearly up here. Hopefully the 6-month will still give a bounce, but if the bias is, if we're coming off yearly, the bias could well still be down. Mubarak, about halfway through the list now. This was another couple of high risk longs in there, so you can see the first one failed. Now second one we're on either a 12-hour or an 8-hour demand. High risk long. This was, yeah, again, another one that's sort of just a little bit awkward up here at the highs and shows with a new coin. So I had an aggressive short that was, I think, a daily supply in here. Gave a reaction but didn't break the low. I then flipped that to a long because it flipped that daily to demand. Again, went up but didn't manage to break the high before breaking down. And I think I did have short possibility of a short up here, but because it hasn't gone there, I've deleted it. And now we've got 3 days. So I think, again, if it gets back up there, but I would look for shorts on this 3-day. Being conscious, like if it does have an untested hourly, like this structure where it's got an untested, actually no, it's got the hourly, actually the 2 hour, both the 2 hours have been tested. But again, these stops up here, like it's possible this is going to run through and take the stops. But yeah, now possible entry. So you can see here, I had an 8-hour, I think it was a 2-hour demand inside the 8 hours, so it got a tiny bounce there, but not much. Now down in the next 8 hour, are we going to get buyers stepping in? Who knows as yet. Still got 8-hour supply and then a new 8-hour supply, so like the other longs that I've seen, it's still a very high risk entry, but if it does run, it has real decent move to run, and if it fails, get the hell out, because down here is very possible. 30-minute in there, like it can, sometimes they can break these zones and go just to the next lower time frame zone below, so we'll see. But generally I don't alert those, I would just watch it if it came into that area. Red, yeah, another one which I had an aggressive long, but clearly downtrend. It did have a monthly up here that hasn't been tested, but let me have a check. So it hasn't made any weekly. It's got a 4-day supply here, so it's again, like I said, these you're just like hoping at this point that you're going to get a high low. Just scroll that back down through the time frame. So yeah, so we're still in this downtrend. came back up, tested daily supply, still expected to break this low, could have given a bounce off here, so far isn't. But yeah, that's not something you can watch if you want, but it's not a high probability entry, and you can see it's drifted right down inside anyway, but could well take out this low, and you can watch also for a possible swing fail of that low. But again, it's a new coin. I think it's listed BIBIT, but in fact it's all the exchanges, so like I said, could go either way, could pick up support here. And then just watch out for that 4-day supply. It's a little bit choppy, and again, if it makes a higher low, this is weak supply. B3, so another one that's come into 8-12 hour. I think there was there's a 4-hour demand. I think I put in the alert, there was a, just check, I think I put there's a 4-hour and then 12-hour below, but now coming from weekly supply. So again, it wasn't a high probability entry. There was a 4-hour and then a 12-hour underneath. You can see it's just come down into the 12-hour. Possibly higher low here. I think I had this alert for really wanting a test here, but it didn't give it to me. I don't know if I still want that in there. Because if it does run from here and if it does get through this 4-day supply, then it's going to flip something to demand. But again, I'll leave it for now. Just see what the reaction is as if it gets up into that area. But you know, it's got this 4-day supply to get through first. That's B3 quick. Yeah, another one. I can't remember if the alert was on the 5-day or for the 12-hour insider. Probably on the 5-day demand there. It's not a high probability trade, and I think I said that in the alert as well. This has come off. I didn't quite hit. It came off the 3-day. Didn't quite hit the 2-month supply there. But yeah, this isn't really a long. I think that's worth taking when you look at the other things instead. You know, this is in the bigger picture. Not particularly nice. Could be reversing here, but you're just guessing at this point. And given it's come off very close to the 2-month supply there, you know, it's very possible it's going to take out this low. It's got a 3-day supply in there. It might create a new one and or a weekly. So yeah, that's not one I would look at taking. Nor is auction. You know, again, this obviously had this crazy up move. I think I had an alert also for it to break all-time high, which obviously it didn't quite get for the swing fail trade of the absolute high. Then I had an alert for 2-day demand in here, but obviously it came straight through that, which, you know, when you see that candle, when you saw it coming down, that should have been an alert that clearly you wouldn't take anyway. And now it's back down to weekly demand, and it's still like I say, these are still very tenuous. Like, I'm seeing so many of these random pumps just break down. This is one of the stronger ones in the first place, and it is a weekly demand. But yeah, I'm you know, it's a big swing fail of this high. You know, is it going to come back and just come back and take out that low? And you can see I've still got the alert down here for monthly demand. But yeah, you can watch this and see if it gives a bounce there. Weekly demand, maybe it can dip a little bit in the level. I've got a 6-month level there as well. Let me see. And but it's just, again, it's a 6-month supply, so it hasn't actually broken the 6-month supply because it didn't quite break that wick. But you know, like, it's up to you. It's like it's a bit of a risky entry, but it has come down a lot. So if you check divergences and things like that, you know, this might well have a daily divergence on this now. But again, you know, at least wait for some low time frame structure to tell you to get long on this. It's not an immediate entry. Form. Oh yeah, so this this is another one I was aggressively looking for shorts on. This is a rogue wick. So this alert went yesterday only on Binance and only on spot. So I didn't look at every single exchange, but like I think MEXC, BIBIT, and even Binance Futures, I think, don't have this wick. So I've reset the alert anyway. So this was something, you know, I mean, put this many times in my my other videos. So, you know, we had longs going all the way up here, and then I flipped a short bias on the swing fail of that high, and some decent shorts running down. So always something to be aware of on the high. Like, I've commented on this on Monday. So this is a 12-hour supply here. I said in the alert that it might go to this hourly that was untested above, which it did. So that, you know, while it did wick through that level, that's just a swing fail. It dropped And then again, the retest here, I said I was slightly nervous of this again, because once it's done a 1, 2, 3 down, it's possible, you know, if it's still bullish, it's just going to go up. So this again did take a wick quite high. This was a 4-hour supply. It did take a wick quite high in the zone. Didn't quite take out the high, but again has dropped. And then I think now, so it also, and the reason also for that one was because it was also a daily supply. What I really want to see on this now is it create that 3-day supply. It's going to be in 2 days' time, or create a 2-day at the end of today. Then I might be more bearish on this, but it's kind of holding longer than I'd like. I did get a rejection here off this 8-hour. I could have put the alert in there, which I didn't. I'm not sure why I didn't. I think I was waiting to see if a new daily supply would be created, which it didn't. And also, I don't know if this wick's going to affect it, you know, like if it has wiped out all the spot traders, and if most of the volume's on spot, like maybe this is enough and it's going to go up. Unsure. Yeah, I'd need to look at the charts on the other exchanges just to kind of, because of that biases me. But anyway, some really nice short entries on that. A nice example of how you can multiple trade on the same. And it's good if you get familiar with the particular chart. CSPR, I think we've got this 5-day demand down here. Hasn't quite tested it, in fact. Or there's a 4-day and there's a 5-day inside it. Obviously, this is still very much in a downtrend, so it got a rejection here off its yearly supply. I think it wasn't. I think it was a 6-month when it got that rejection. It's now a yearly, so I did have an alert in there in case it retested it. That's not set at the moment. It's just the line. Could run up through all this, but also now has a 3-month supply in there. So again, I can see these wicking. So while we have all these 3-month supplies, you know, as I've said, you know, with all this chop, like I think you need to be conscious of them. I think, but don't. So you don't want to blindly short. But I'm not going to set a whole bunch of alerts except where they're really obvious, because this can still obviously run all the way back up to here and still respect the 3-month supply. And we saw that like last year, you know, a lot of these last moves at the end of last year broke monthly supplies, but then closed back below, flipping them back. It looked like they were going to flip them to indirect demand, but then didn't, close back below. So anyway, decent area to look for longs on this, but not great on the supply side, given the 3 months in there, and it's still got a whole bunch of these weeklies as well. So again, there's probably better things to long than this. So yes, it has that chop of supply, which is good, but there's others that don't have the 3-month in there that I think would be better to look for longs on. AERO I talked about at the beginning. It's similar to CSPR, you know, it's got the monthly, so it's not 3 months, it's got a monthly supply in there. It could do a run through all this, but you run the risk of the monthly supply rejecting at the start of it, so just be careful if you do want to get into that. SLING, oh, I also talked about this slightly at the beginning as well, so this was the one where I have the 2-day demand that wasn't quite confirmed when I put the alert in. I preempted it and it didn't close strongly. At the end of the day, it's still kind of holding there, so you can keep an eye on this to see if it gets some consolidation through there, but it's a high risk entry on this. But at least it has an easy invalidation. You know, if you want to scalp long this, be a little bit careful. But you could put your stop just under this low and just see. A lot of the CT people, not something I particularly do, but they use the EMAs for these types of scalps. Maybe this doesn't have enough history, but I know they like to use the 4-hour EMAs. I'm not sure what numbers they use at the moment on mine, so I've only got 2. There are actually 4 on this indicator. This is my own indicator. You can search for it if you want, just to get the 4 of them. But yeah, 20, 50, 200, 100 and 200. So this obviously hasn't got 100 and 200 because it hasn't got enough history. It's come through the 20. So maybe you would want to wait and see if it bounces on the 50. I mean, it's possible it's just not got enough history. You don't want to see a rejection off the 20 here, that's for sure. But I know, yeah, a lot of CT use these when we're in bull runs to get the very tight entries when the market's very strong. But obviously the market isn't overly strong now, so. But you know, if you want to look for a long on this, you know, maybe you can wait till it hits that green EMA. On the flip side, actually, since I've got that on, you can also use these as possible entries, wait till it gets above and retest. So for example here, got above the blue one, rejected off the brown one, then retested the blue for looking for your long entries, but then you can see the brown here was very much resistance. So, you know, for the bigger, higher time frame trade, maybe you want to wait for the brown to break. Personally, I don't use them because I find them, you know, you get situations like this where you go, oh, it's broken all the EMAs, and then it just comes straight back through. So SPAR, again, was one I was bullish on up here because it had a, I think a monthly or a 3-month demand even. Let me just check. Maybe just a monthly. Again, it was one of the ones that looked stronger later than everything else, but then ultimately ended up dying. So up here, I thought maybe we would get, you know, this monthly to hold because I think it was looking stronger than the rest of the market, but no. Come back down, and now it's flipped that monthly to supply. So again, while we've fallen into a demand, it is a daily demand. There is a monthly just underneath, so that was the aggressive entry off the 2-day. It's got a monthly underneath, and I've reset the alert for the 3-weekly consolidation, which wasn't quite tested below there. But now with the monthly supply, so this is another one, it could run up through all this. But given this has a decent kind of gap, it's got a decent red string down before that most recent like consolidation, I think this is a more viable short on the monthly supply than some of the others we've seen, but again still has the chop above. XTZ, so this was another one of the aggressive shorts, and the example of what I had, what I was potentially looking at on the 3-month supply. I might reset this alert. So I had the alert set for 3-day/3-month supply. Obviously it's come off the 3-day and it hasn't hit the 3-month. It's come back into a daily demand here. So again, these are aggressive shorts. They are high risk because we are, you know, at testing previous support. Are we going to make a higher low in the bigger picture? We had a decent up move. Is this going to be a higher low here? So they are aggressive, but like I said at the start of the video, are we going to get just a straight rejection off 3-month supply in here for a bigger drop? So again, I think this is similar to ZLC. It gave a nice drop off this, but it's come straight back into daily demand. So now we just need to see, is it going to hold this? Is that the high now and we're going to get the drop, or is it going to stop pushing from here? Still on a local higher low, so obviously you can still go much higher in the 3-month supply if it wants. Trend line stopped here, etc, etc. So you're just looking for that instant reaction in here, or somewhere in this area. So if it comes up a little bit higher to 0.7, you can look at again to see if this gives you shorts, or alternatively, if it breaks this daily demand, if it closes back below, what's that, 0.65, and flips that to supply, then you can look for a short down. And I've got an alert here on this double bottom for possible swing fail there, and then also I'll move the alert down to the all-time low if it kind of runs further. T. So T, another really nice short there. So again, this is something that's come off 2-month supply. So this is giving you a nice example of higher lows that fail essentially. That this one I didn't have an alert set on, but it swing failed the low here. Went straight back up into 2-week and 2-month supply here. Neat rejection straight off there. I expect the 2-month to break the low. So therefore I don't put any long entries in, even though it had a little in this case it had a 3-day demand there. And it did get a bounce off there. But so, like I say, in some cases I have these entries in, but in this case, it coming off 2-month supply, so I have to do the full analysis to really know where things are coming from. So this came off the 2-month supply. It came back down into this 3-day demand. There was also, a 2-day and a daily a little bit higher. It gave a small bounce off there, but didn't get, it's possible this bounce goes back up to here. It's possible it goes higher in the 2-month supply. You can take these entries if you want to, but just know that they are lower probability because of where price is coming from. So this was an example of like what I said earlier as well, that these, the shorts being consistently higher probability, and demand being possibly it might give a bounce. In this case, it came back up. It actually had a 12-hour supply here. Don't know if it's wicked through that or if it's just neatly rejected. So Yes, it's giving you a bounce off that 3-day demand there, or just above in fact, gone straight up into the next supply and then just gone back down. And similarly here, you know, if you want to look for a long on a higher low here, that's entirely up to you, but it's now made a weekly supply, it's got 3-day supply above there. I probably wouldn't want to short this quite so close to support now. While I expect it to break the low, it doesn't have to. You know, if it's going to reverse trend, maybe it can go up from here. But it means, you know, it has broken local demand, it has made new local supply. So until you start seeing it make, like, either go through some local supply or make new demand and hold it, it's still in a downtrend. So the alert here I have is a little early, in fact, so I might actually going to reset that for a bit lower. But what again, I was looking for the possibility of a swing fail of all-time low, but the usual, so as I've said before, the black cross is either for a swing fail or it's for a breakdown retest. So it just means watch the level. So in this case, you know, I don't think I had one there because I think I was not checking, or I hadn't checked it in time, but this did swing fail the low here. So it is possible it holds a higher low there because that's a swing fail of the previous low by a hair. In fact, both those previous lows, I think it was by 5 cents or something less. So I want to see, so I think now the chances are for me now this is going to break down, like, because we're coming off the 2-month supply up there, we've made a new weekly, you know, maybe it would give you a short somewhere in here, but I don't want to short this low. But that, just because I don't want to short this low doesn't mean that it's not going to go lower. But what I want to see here is probably rejection somewhere in here, either on the weekly or on the 3-day supply, break that low by a decent red candle, and then I would short the retest. So that's the short I want to take at this point in time, if it happens. If, you know, if I see otherwise, you know, if this blasts through here, flips a weekly to demand, fine, then you can long a retest. But this, what this alert is, or alternatively, if it comes back down, takes out the low, swing fails again, and then again breaks some supply, then you can look for a long retest there. But for me, the other possibility is the most likely at this point in time. But there is still no trade right now. Banana. So again, this was one, I've talked about this, I think when the alert went at the time, it came deeper, it hit monthly demand, it came a lot deeper inside, so it was a hard one to get into before this big pump. And then didn't come back and test when I wanted the re-entry, unfortunately. So I did say to watch that in monthly demand, so congratulations if you got that. Still rejecting weekly supply though, so again, there's another very aggressive long entry here. You know, it's still in a weekly downtrend, but it's the first test on this clean monthly demand below. It's now got a 2-month supply above, so I think I've set an alert for a short. Let me check what I've written. So 1 week and then 1 month supply. So there's a small 1 month supply in here as well, and then the bigger 2 month I think already got rejected. But it's a clean test of this monthly demand. You know, maybe this will run straight through, but happy to look for shorts there. But yeah, so we'll see. Again, like I say, if the market was stronger, I'd be more confident of looking at an entry here. But given it hasn't got through this weekly supply, it's got high in it, then, you know, it's still entirely possible that the market isn't ready for this yet, and that we get a move up into the daily supply from here, drop down into here before a move. But yeah, again, so that's an aggressive long entry for me. Like, if I'd taken this, it would have been a scalp up to this daily supply, possibly. Again, being conscious that we've got this weekly right there. Final few now that have come through today. So THE is a bit of a tough one because Binance, so see Binance chart above, so I've got the Binance charted as well, actually I can show you, it's right below. So Binance obviously looks like an epic downtrend. I've still got a short entry here on the 2-week supply that unfortunately got missed, but it just looks like a downtrend to the death. Not sure what the, let me see what the Binance non-perpetual chart looks like. Yeah, so it's just got a green candle and a drift to the death. This CoinEx has more history, so this is an annual demand on CoinEx. Again, I don't know how decent or reliable that is, and it's also a 3-week demand, so you can see we're already getting a little bounce off the level. But this is something definitely worth keeping an eye on. Again, could run through all this if it wants to, but I just don't know, like, if this is enough that it's on, you know, are people checking on CoinEx? Is this demand on CoinEx enough, like, based on now the additional volume that will have come in on Binance to hold this as support? not sure. But yeah, this is certainly something that you should keep on your radar. Be conscious it could go back, all the way to the start of this up move. So I've reset the alert. So it's hit the 3 weekly. The yearly level is slightly lower. So keep an eye if this comes down a bit lower as well. And then I've reset the alert for this weekly inside, because again, it's got a weekly demand here that hasn't been tested, a little bit lower. But yeah, this could certainly give a decent move. So my alert on Binance is on this zone at the moment. But what I would want to see, if I saw this with strength, I wouldn't want to short here, but what I would want to see is that weekly supply get wiped out, hopefully get a rejection off here, for then a retest, for then a bigger up move. But I guess we'll see. Sometimes this happens, and this is why I give the aggressive entries, just in case we get that, and at least it means people have the opportunity to FOMO in if they want to. API. So this is another really challenging one structurally. So nice short here on 5-day inside the 2-month supply. I've again reset the alert because it's now created 3-month supply just slightly above that high. And this has come back down into 2-day demand. So again, this is not a high probability. I think this is 2-day down here, and then it's hit the daily. So I think I've just had 1 2-day demand as a generic look for a possible bounce in this area. In a perfect world, I would like to see a bounce off here to go up into there to make a double top before a drop. Don't know if I'm going to get that. That's again assuming strength that isn't existing in the market right now. It's possible also that we get just a bounce up to there before a drop down and then that move. So again, we'll see, but both of these long entries are not high probability, neither this nor this, because we're coming off 2-month supply. And in fact, we're so close to that 3-month level, is that, the 3-month playing out already. So these are only scalps. Be careful, you need to manage them really closely if you want to go into these entries, take these entries. Yeah, so that's it. So I hope that's been useful. If anyone's still here, feel free to, let me look at WAV again. Can't remember what I had. Oh, I had AERO on this previously. Yeah, if anyone's here, feel free to put any requests in. But I think maybe not right now. Let's have a quick look at what Bitcoin's doing again. Okay, so we've come up into my zone of interest and a little bit higher inside it. Where's that wick gone to? So yeah, the wick's gone to. So it's finding quite a lot of resistance on this red box. So this is the zone, which is not surprising. So this is exactly the same as we had in the lower price. So this red box is the zone that was holding support for price when it was in this upper consolidation, and it keeps finding resistance to that red zone now. And this is exactly the same. I should show you this on my other chart, but anyway, it's exactly the same as what we had here. We had this red box in the previous consolidation. It went below, it kind of consolidated, but did go back through, consolidated inside it before moving off. Here, consolidated inside it before dropping down. And then again over here was resistance in the zone, consolidating in the zone before a move up, and it started caring less about the zone towards that side. But and this is quite similar to what we're getting at current price, which is why I have that box drawn in, that it's come up into the zone, it's rejected in the zone now. Where again, are we going to push through it this time? Possibly. We'll see. As I said, I just wanted to see the reaction in here. I'm going to delete this 3-day just because it's making it harder to see. And I'm going to delete the fib because I find fibs in general less reliable on Bitcoin. Although I say that, but it did actually bounce off the 61 fib at the low here. Yeah, so this is kind of what I was hoping for, that this to hit the daily supply at the same time that Ether went into this 2-hour zone. But obviously it's not rejecting quite as fast as I would want it to. So if Ether is now going to head up to this 3-day, then obviously Bitcoin's going to take out that zone. So give this a bit of time. In fact, now I see it, there's also an untested hourly up here at 87,900. So it could run higher, or it could run through and swing foul this daily. In fact, and I also wanted the confluence of so Korea and CME are in the right place, but I actually wanted the confluence of US dollar dominance hitting this daily demand down here, which I'm not going to get. It is, you know, it could find support on top of these wicks here. It is at a point that it could bounce. So yeah, still worth watching. It's not a no-go zone on Bitcoin, but it's a tentative one. And ETH is a no-go from where it is right now. I would want that a little bit higher. Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to sign off because my voice is failing. I hope that's useful. Please feel free to let me know what you think of the alerts, what will be helpful or more or less helpful or useful to see when I'm going through the alerts. And yeah, have a good evening.